Hey everyone, welcome to the Mama Gang podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Bell.
Hey guys, I'm Sophia.
And we are bringing you the tips, the tricks, the insight, the experiences, everything you need to know to get through the hood motherhood. In this episode, we're going to talk about what you need to reach your goals and to get through those crazy parts of life that you just need to focus and reach some of those hard things that you don't even know how you're going to get to. But we have a guest in studio.
And we love this guest.
He's amazing. He
Phenomenal.
Yes. And he's a great psychologist. He helps people think differently, which is the name of his company. It's Dr. Abraham Gutsioglou. He is Dr. G.
Yes.
His clients call him Dr. G. He's an author, a speaker, a professor, an international consultant with a PhD in industrial organizational psychology. Dr. G, we love you.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thanks.
for being here.
This is a bit of a switch up because Dr. G is actually a male. We usually have moms on the show, so this would be interesting.
Yeah.
Switcheroo.
A new perspective, but you work in the world of like organization and how a structure can improve itself, which is huge for us because our family is a structure and organization, and we need to know how we can accelerate and get to those dreams and goals that we have for ourselves.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, I mean, it's interesting that you talk about organizations, right? Like in the workplace, those are family structures too, right? People look up to their boss as a parent. And so there's a lot of connections between the two. So
That's interesting.
Absolutely.
He's going to give us those details.
Stay tuned. But before we get into the meat and potatoes with Dr. G, we have a question from one of our followers with the Mama Gang. And the question is, how do you reach your personal goals when you have to focus on the kids?
That's huge because we sacrifice. I'm the person that's like, I want to push myself out there to give everything to my kids so I can never look back and be like, I did everything I could. But then I lose sight of myself. And I know there's a lot of mothers out there that are like, how are you in school? How are you doing Mama Gang? How are you? And I'm like, well, I have a support team too.
I don't know how she
girl,
does it. She has
pushes
two.
me.
She's, amazing, phenomenal. I don't even know when she sleeps. I saw her son's schedule. I'm like, whoa, he has like 10. He's busier than an adult.
I organize him better than myself. I'm just winging it through school. But Dr. G, do you have some insight on this? Because what I tell parents is I'm just like, push for your goals. Try to just organize as best as possible. I try to organize my kids and then see, what does it look like when I organize myself and then blend the two worlds. She is go-getter.
yeah.
She pushes. She's actually the one who pushes me to do this. She's my partner in this. So I'm just like, okay, I fed off of her goal-driven momentum. So with you work with huge companies. I mean, you have a huge...
Yeah, I mean, well, look, there's a
background.
lot, but people are people, right? And so I think what you're just describing right now is a support system. And so you need that balance. So when you're trying to reach your goal, no one is going to care about your goal as much as you do, right? In business, no one's going to care about your business as much as you do. And so, yeah, there's 5 simple things or 6 simple things that you can do. So one of them is establish clarity. If you know exactly what you want to do, in your case, you want to go get a doctor, right? You want to keep going, do that. If you're clear about it, you know then what to do. You know what kind of steps you need to take. Second thing is our brain loves automation. And so if you just set the coordinates, right? Just put it on yourself and say, here's where I want to go. Here's what I want to do. And then forget about the noise. There's going to be people that say, no, you can't do it, or that's a dumb idea. Forget it. Just rely on your support system in this case.
Sophia.
Well, I mean, it's more than just
Sophia.
one person, right?
Well,
It's
yeah.
a team, right? And then the third thing is now, how do you think about making decisions? We overcomplicate things, and that's human nature. We question, we have the imposter syndrome, and we try to do way too many things, right? And so you simplify your decisions, and you go forward with that one thing you want to do. And you always have that why. Why do I want this? How can this help myself in the future? And how can it help my gang, my mama gang, right? Because we get lost in translation. And so having that clarity, having that goal, being set on those priorities that we're going to hit, making simple decisions, and then being okay that things are going to mess up every now and then. Being okay that we don't have all the answers.
We know that.
Right.
Progress is progress. Even
Yeah.
if it's a tiny little inch, progress is progress, right? And then the last one, which I think it's the most important, is the best coach that you could ever have is between your ears, which is self-talk. Self-talk is the best talk. And you're going to be the best coach that you can have. And so, in a nutshell, that itself is what really makes the difference between people who get their goals and that don't get their goals.
Wow. So that sounds so good.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah,
I'm like,
it's a
that
lot.
sounds good. So how do I follow each of those
I
things?
need a pen and a pad for those
I need,
notes.
yeah. And well, you're published. I mean, you have a book that
Mm-hmm.
that really can touch on some of this and give some insight.
What's the
on
name
us.
of this book, Britt?
The Round Table.
Ooh.
He teaches people how to think differently, but he embraces this roundtable philosophy. It's like to help see the world in a whole different way so that you can operate better. And he's all about like top tier performance. And I think that's one of my favorite things about Dr. G is just knowing that he understands simplification, structure, and how to like understand how you're moving. And that's what you do for major, huge companies, multi-million-dollar companies. You can go in there, care about what's happening with the people, see what the structure needs, and shift it. So for us as moms, can you just give us some practicals within each step that we can apply to our daily life? Let's just say like, what could be a goal each of us have is like, okay, setting
Self-care.
that goal. Yeah, self-care.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. So if we look at the goal itself, right? The piece that we need to focus on is why do you want it? So why would you want self-care?
Oh,
To
can tell you that all
relax. I
day
need
long.
to take care of ourselves because nobody's gonna take care of me.
no one.
Yeah. Okay.
Or you could just blow a gasket and lose it, and you're no good to your children or your mate when you're no good for yourself. You know, so you got to take out that
Yeah.
time.
That's right.
I
And
think that's the huge one.
it's huge. But if you think about it, it's still huge, right? So if we simplify it a bit, now we go into how are we going to measure progress? So, okay, self-care, that's a goal, but how do you know you're actually making progress towards that goal? So how would you simplify it in one simple metric? What would you know? How would you know?
By tracking it.
Okay. So like what would you track as an example?
Let's see. What could we
I
track?
wake up at 5 a.m. and go work out Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
I make sure I don't miss that.
Yeah, she's really good at this stuff.
Yeah.
Or I wouldn't just not have a productive day.
Maybe by setting up like what you are before to what you are going to be later, like maybe measuring like your current state, like where I'm at and then where I'm going to be.
That's right. Now, I would even say integrate that new behavior into things you already do. So, for example, if you know you're going to be out running around with kids, or you have a bunch of chores, or you have a lot of business to take care of, instead of maybe being fancy or dressed up in one way, maybe you could switch it up and have like running shoes already on, right? So you can say, I'm going to stop this because I'm going to go walking for 10 minutes. And then just set that goal. But 10 minutes, remember, progress is progress, right? And so if you do 10 minutes over the course of a month, that's huge, huge. It's better than doing 1 hour one day and then not doing it again.
That's really
That's great
amazing
insight.
because, yeah. I mean, like, I wouldn't think, like, that I would need to set myself up for that already, you know, just by putting on the running shoes. You know, you think that that's something that you just would change into, but that quick switch could be the one thing that activates you to actually take care of yourself. I mean, by just already being ready and prepared for it. How much do we do that for our kids already? How proactive are we? It was like, I already got the bottle and the snacks and the things in the bag. I'm ready to go for them, but what about me?
Yeah, I always say, EK, stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Yeah.
And you're like, ready, mommy? You
Yeah.
know, so teaching
Yeah.
them that at an early age is important too.
The other thing you want to teach is, look, when you're on an airplane, before all this, pandemic stuff, people or the flight attendants would say, put your oxygen mask on first.
Yeah.
You can't, doesn't matter how much you love people, you can't help them if you're not good, right? And so I think that's one of those things that people around us would role model. So if your kids or your loved one, your spouse, your mate, whatever, they see that it's just you running hot all the time but never caring for you,
Wow.
they're going to do that too because they think that's success. They think that's the way to do it. But you want to say, let's pause, let's reflect, let's live in the brackets. I like to say, let's live in the brackets. Here's what I find. People live in one of two worlds. They live in the future and then they experience anxiety because they're always thinking, I wish this to be. I hope this happens. Like, I don't have it yet, but I want it. Or they live in the past and they have depression, sadness. So they start to feel like, "Ah, I wish things were like this. How come we can't go back to that?" But they're always living there, and they don't focus on
Right
in the
now.
brackets in right now. And if you think about it, having a neutral mindset helps you to pivot and to make top tier performance decisions, because throughout the day you only have, in my experience, maybe 3 solid good decisions that you can make, and the rest are just like junk, right? But you don't want to waste your time on something that's not going to drive towards that meaning or that purpose or that goal or that transformation that you want, if you're just making decisions on tiny little things, right, in the brackets.
Wow. But you speak on something that's really important, and that's transformation. I think that that's a huge thing. Right now, for me specifically, I really believe in, you know, evolving as a human being, and especially on the psychology journey. I mean, self actualization and just self awareness is huge. But really choosing to take the good and transform yourself into being, you know, even greater, and finding your way into these goals that you have, and to set that and make it a reality. Because how many times do we set a goal and then it doesn't happen, or you attempt it and then it just kind of falls short and by the wayside? How do you approach that from your perspective, being a professional?
Understanding the difference between change and transformation. They're not the same thing.
Right.
Change is basically the difference between two things. Like, I'm sitting right now, and if I stand up, that's change, right? I'm not a better person. I'm not more meaningful. I don't have, like, a better life. But with transformation, you need change in it. So you need change as a milestone. And so the transformation element happens when you ask yourself a philosophical question, which is, I got here, now what? So if I wanted to be, let's say, a runner, because I've never run in my life, and all of a sudden I want to do a 5K. If I do that 5K, and then I ask myself, now what? Do I go back to being a couch potato? Do I go back to my old ways? And most people do. They regress, right, to their old ways. Or do I now want to be an ultra swimmer? And now that creates a transformation, because I will never be the same person that I was before that goal.
Wow.
And so if it's just a task or a goal, that's change, right? You're just changing something. But if you're really hitting transformation, it requires you to not ever be that person that you were at that point.
That's great.
Wow.
That's deep.
Wow.
So who are you going to be, So?
You keep saying the word transition and change, and I'm big on this. I feel like becoming a mom is one of the biggest selfless jobs anyone can have. You're serving all day, and guess
Yep.
what? Everything changes.
Yep.
Yeah.
From your mind. I mean, you're going to drive down the street and look at signs and be like, why would they put that sign there?
Yep.
Whereas before you were a parent, you don't care. That sign is not affecting you.
Oh,
That's right.
yeah.
So you think on a different level. Like, you don't even look at things the same when you become
Yeah.
a mom.
Because that goal, like he's talking about, like that focus, the why. That why is there. And you know what? This is a really good thing, because that question that had come up was, how do you, focus on those goals, or reach the things that you want when you have the worries of the kids? And it's like, I think we think the why is always just the kids, but in self-care and for us, the why can be something personal in reaching a goal, and really like prioritizing ourselves in a way that doesn't neglect our kids, but involves them. Like you said, like bringing the two together. That's amazing.
People talk about generational wealth, right? I like to talk about generational health. And so generational
that.
well-being, right? And so I don't have kids. However, in your description, what you were talking about, it wasn't change. That was a transformation, because
Big time.
your life will never be the same. Your mindset will never be what it was before you had kids. It's a completely different world, right?
Right.
And so in that aspect, as you're thinking about what's next and what more, we have to consider this generational aspect, right? Because we're leaving behind things. And do we want to leave behind that mental fitness, that prime performance, and teach it back, and have our structures support us to get us to that place, right? Whatever that place might be. But we also consider there's that business side of the house, there's a personal side, and then there's the emotional, psychological, mental well-being side of the house. All of that makes it just a beautiful thing if we can, right? put into our families.
So what does that look like as a whole if we were to apply it? Because that's all important. Everything you just listed off, to incorporate into even our motherhood. Because I think sometimes we take the backseat, and we don't really think bigger.
Yeah.
We don't really think as grand as we could. We kind of leave it to certain roles within our home. Not speaking for all mothers, because there are some mothers out there that, they are pulling the weight for the whole family and they're trying to find their way. But how do we get out of that cycle and apply this transformational, your model,
Right. Yeah.
into our life in such a way that we can just start recognizing, like if we were to list it out or try to like vision it.
Yeah. So it's simple questions that, it's like a checklist that you put together and you just ask yourself. So first thing is always this clarity of goal, clarity of purpose, what we want, and then it goes into why we want it. The why, though, most of the time what I've seen is clients will give a superficial why. Like, I want it because of X, right? Like, I want a better life. Yeah, who doesn't, right?
Right.
But you have to go through like 5, 6, 7 layers of why. You keep asking why, and someone like a coach, I would sit here and ask, why? Tell me why that's important, and we keep digging, kind of like a kid, right? A kid asks all these questions, and so then we start going into the element of, okay, how much time do I want to give myself to actually get this done? Wow. The time makes it real, and if you give yourself a very long runway, it's not going to happen because then you deprioritize it. If you then give yourself too short of a runway, you're not going to do it because it's daunting, it's overwhelming, and it's not going to work.
You're stressed out because you're going to
right? And it's not bad to have a short runway, meaning like if I want to, I don't know, go to the gym every day for the next 45 days, that's a thing, but I have to now commit that some things will not get done. Am I okay with those things not getting done because I want this thing to get done? And then we move into, okay, what's going to get in the way?
Right.
And usually there's 4 things that I see that get in the way.
Wow.
1, people get in the way, meaning they'll hold you back. They'll tell you you're not good enough.
Discourage you.
That's right, right? And then, so people, process. Maybe the way that you go about doing something is not as conducive. Remember, our brain loves automatic. And if you ask it to think, it'll slow down. And just like your phone, if you open a bunch of apps, the battery is going to drain, right? And so you want to be efficient with what you're asking it to do. And so then you go into the other piece that gets in the way is design, maybe the way things are designed around you. Technology gets in the way, right? But then the last piece is the support system. So support system could easily be those 4 things. Why not use technology to augment your experience or to make it easier for you to do something, right? Like I used to type a lot when I was writing. Now I dictate. And so I'll just talk to my computer and it does it, and it'll spell check and it'll do maybe I'll correct some
I
stuff.
need to do that.
Funny,
Right.
that's how I wrote my book over the pandemic this
That's
year.
it.
All dictation, and then when I got the editor sent back, I was like, "Whoa! I was talking into the all this red everywhere."
Yeah, but I mean, it's simpler to correct that than to type like 10 hours, right?
Absolutely.
So the support system is huge. Having someone, having a thing, not everyone's fortunate to have people around them, but if you can find even a digital, I call them digital mentors, someone that inspires you, that you can see their progress, you can follow what they do, that keeps you going. And that in itself is the transformation model, right?
Yeah.
That drives that.
That's
That's really
great.
great. Wow.
That's so good. The why, I think, is really important. I think that calling out that there's a superficial why. It's like, well, why do I want to be a good mom? It's like, okay, but why? What is that really about? Like, what's the real reason? I think finding the why in life is really amazing. In some cases, you just don't worry about the why and just do it. Don't worry.
just gotta go for it.
Like the kids.
Yeah.
Kids are so amazing. They're like, why?
Yeah,
And we got to be a little bit more like kids, right? We got to
Yeah.
have their
a lot more.
personality and their
Yeah.
energy, their drive, their ambition. They don't ask for permission. They just do.
They just do it.
Yeah.
I think kids are faith-based. The 3 principles that I live by is faith, family, and then finance, in that order.
Yeah.
I say that because even before I was married, I always knew in my mind what I desired. But it took a lot of faith and a lot of sacrifice. But then when I put my family first with my faith, then the finances just come. So if you're a mom out there and you're worried like, oh, I'll sacrifice this time or I want to just listen.
Yeah.
it all works itself out when you have faith, family, and the finances and the obedience. With obedience, it just works out. So I would give that piece of advice to just follow those 3 principles along with Dr. G's published resources, I must say. But like those 3 things are a foundation of success in marriage, in relationship, and motherhood.
Yeah, I love the one on faith because that ties into the why, right? And so why, and the faith element drives a lot of the emotional components. It drives a lot of your purpose, and it helps you connect to your soul, right? Like if you don't feel like feeding your soul is really what drives, what wakes you up in the morning and helps you execute. And when people don't thank you and all that you just remind yourself like, this is why I do it, and you just keep going. But faith, huge.
That's amazing. I just think about the moment that you really start to understand your why, I think is when a lot of clarity happens and you really start to process like, okay, now there's a lot more meaning behind me doing things. And then you start to clear the road, you start to clear the way, and then you can create, your path and your vision for yourself. And I love what you said about short runway and long runway. Yeah. I can't tell you, I have set myself up with a short runway before and been like, missed it. Yeah. Or I've done the long one and been like, that'll come. And then one day it rolls around, I'm like, oh, I forgot about that, you know? So I think that's so key, is to like know yourself and be honest with who you are, and not just be like, I'm going to open up an LLC tomorrow and I'm going to create and it's like, and now it's sitting on your bookshelf, you know, the title of the folder is over there and you didn't do anything with it. Like, did you really map it out and say, why are you doing this, and apply it to your everyday life?
And being okay with making changes because our why changes, right? One moment we are so in love with the way one thing will be and we believe in it, and life happens.
Oh, yeah.
And we realize, maybe that's not my priority. Maybe that's not where I should focus. And it's okay. It's okay making that transition. I feel like a lot of moms, a lot of parents out there struggle with letting go. And there's a visual out there where there's like this rope and someone's like holding on really tight, and it's like cutting circulation, and it says just let go. Just let go. And then like it works out.
Yeah.
Let go.
You have to trust the process.
And let God.
Yeah. I think there's so much behind that too. It's like, just let go. And I think for me, the letting go really incorporated the faith of like, once I started to trust God and I really was like, okay, God, I trust you. I really trust you. But it took me time to get there because there was time where I was like, I trust God, but I was like, I trust God, but then I was like, a little bit of
uncertainty.
I just started to like really take one finger at a time off the rope, and then realize I was like, oh, I'm okay if I let go.
Yeah.
But it took self-awareness. It took really deep diving into the reasons why you hang on tight to things. And that's on like a real deep level, and not on like, oh, why do I, choose to go do this with my kids at 6 o'clock every day? No, it's like the real whys that are driving you in life. And I think that that's what starts to get us out of the ruts, is really understanding our actual reasoning and purpose for things.
Yeah.
The psychology behind things has really been a huge factor for me, and wellness and health. And I love how you focus on mindfulness too. I think that's a really, really big part.
Yeah. And even the element of, making the unconscious conscious, right? So this is the aspect of self-awareness. Like, why do we do the things that we do? And guaranteed, I don't know what you do every day, but I'm pretty sure that when you wake up in the morning, you have the same routine, pretty close patterns, and at night, same, right? But that's because we're automating things, right? And so when we really break apart those things, but look at what are the things that feed our purpose, our soul, and why do we do those? Why do we gravitate to that? And we just kind of minimize the noise around it, and we focus in on that faith aspect, then it amplifies all the beautiful things that surround it that make it worthwhile. Right?
You won't be so guilt-driven or regretful about the things that kind of take the wayside away from it. I think that's true. And even when it does hurt to kind of let go and you're like, ow, wow, it felt easier to hold on because now that it's open, I can feel and see all the cuts, you know?
Yeah.
But then you allow yourself to heal that like pain from holding on to something so tight. And then you actually can function and start grabbing other things, or the thing that you really, really had meaningful, you know, that has meaning to you. So I think that's really profound.
It is, and it's experience, right?
Yeah.
You learn this, you go about it, and you test and you experiment. And so I like to say that the word experiment is experience plus cement kind of coming together to make you grounded on something.
I love that, Dr. G.
Say it again.
Yeah, one more time.
So experience plus cement, when you combine them together, it helps create that lesson. And it either teaches you, don't do this again, or it worked, let's try a little bit more. And then you add a little bit. It's kind of, you're cooking something. You're trying different things.
It's like the mom life. I always say, I'm like, mom life is not trial and error. It's trial and retrial and retrial and retrial till you find what works.
That's
right.
Like, that's pretty much it. And that way it takes out that error aspect from us. But I think it's really interesting because I find that for you moms out there, we can be so, and dads too, because I don't want to dismiss the dads out of this because whoever is watching,
we just got daddy gang too.
Yeah,
so.
we do have daddy gang. So it's like we look at our life and we try to figure out how can we accelerate. And Dr. G, you can take something that you have helped, people become more productive and more successful and figure out how to clue in on their goals. And I think that to be able to do that is because you can understand the human process. And that's really amazing. You just said, I can pretty much predict what you're going to do has some habits. How do you get a mom or a dad or somebody out there to start to cue in on their not so good habits that could be getting in the way? How do they start to bring awareness to themselves?
Yeah. Well, realizing that they're a habit, right? Realizing that it's not...
Admitting?
That's it, admitting, right? And so Carl Jung, psychologist, right, way back in the day, said that change could only happen if we accept it as it needs to change. Otherwise, people have no interest in being different unless things happen that force them to be different, right?
Ooh.
Do you think that a person can heal if they're not accepting? Or do you have to have that deliverance first, or that acceptance of, I do have an issue? Or, because there's a lot of people who have issues, but they're like, oh, I'm fine, this is what I want to do. Do you think that they have to accept in order to heal and change to take place?
That's powerful. So, yes, and I would say it depends. The way that their mind is programmed and the way that they set themselves will indicate how they heal and in which way they heal. Because there's positive healing, and I'll say that negative healing, because let's say you go through an experience and you get burned in the process. Then you say, I'm never trusting that person again. And I'm never trusting people. Like, people is a big thing, right? It's not one person.
Wow.
But now they've healed to say, never trusting anyone of this, category of whatever it was. But now it's a negative healing because they've grown through the experience, but now as a result, it's creating negativity in the world, right? The other side of that is, I learned from this painful experience. I don't want it to ever be the same. I don't want others to go through it. So how can I give back in a way that my lesson is an experience for someone else, that they don't have to go through it, or being okay if they are.
That's interesting.
Wow. Wow.
It's fun to take on different perspectives. And I think that for the moms listening or the parents listening in, how you apply this to your life, it really comes down to just knowing yourself and really being willing to explore that. I'm a huge advocate for therapy. I definitely think that people should have their outlet, their place to kind of just self-explore and discover whatever that looks like for you at your stage of life. Like, that's up to you. But I would definitely say have your form of therapeutic experience, whether that's just starting by getting out into nature first and starting to clear your mind, That's the first thing, you know, or just taking a moment to just decompress and literally go close yourself off from the world in a different room. Take your moment to do that. I think sometimes people get afraid of stillness.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
People get
Yeah.
afraid of like stopping what they know they're in habit of doing, because if they stop, that means that they're not good because they're not
Right.
working towards something.
Yeah.
What's your perspective on that?
That happens to all of us, right? Like
The best
to
of
me,
us.
yeah, all the time. And so the best advice that I got is what I use on myself all the time, which is learn to pause and to rest, not to give up. And so there's
Yes.
days that, I don't know, I'll go for a run and I don't feel good. My body's like, why are we doing this? But I have to like I tell my brain what we're doing. So I'm gonna say, we're gonna go for this run. We're gonna do this thing, and we're gonna feel a little bit of pain, but it's okay. We'll get through it. I could have easily just said, you know what, I'm just gonna hang out on the couch, be on social media for a while, and then not do it. But with goals, right? Like if parents don't stop. You can't just set it aside, and you have to remind yourself, when can I pause to breathe, be in the brackets, and then come back at it. It's a never-ending job.
Yeah, we can't stop in some cases. It's like, you know, there's times where you feel like there's no time to process for myself. Like, when?
When?
You
Yeah.
tell me when. I have to do this. I have to take so-and-so to this and da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, I would love to hear out of your mouth to our ears. What do you think about people who say, I have no time?
Yeah, I disagree. I think that they don't have priority,
Ooh.
right?
Whoa.
Everybody. So think about it this way: successful people and unsuccessful people have the same goal, but they have a different outcome. Same goal, right? And the same applies to this thing of time. We all have pretty much the same time
In the day.
in the day, right? And so as we're going through it, it's our priority. Do I want to prioritize spending quality time with my family and my friends? Or do I want to prioritize doing this thing on the business because I know it will pay dividends later on, that I can spend more time with my family and friends?
Wow.
But the guilt trip of the people around us is what convinces us to think, I can't do that now because I have to do this now, right? And so it's the priority and sticking to it and being okay with the experience of guilt, shame, or anger or depression. That will pass just as much as happiness passes, right? It's not forever. You go through joy, you go through experience of happiness, but at some point you go back to your normal being, and you have to keep going. But priority.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Priorities are a really big, and what's your why in those priorities too. I think that's huge, because I could easily be like, oh, I'll put aside all of the, you know, career driven stuff and pour everything into my kids with the justification that it's all about leaving my legacy for the kids, and saying, oh, if I can, you know, grow this amazing human being that could thrive in life, they'll be, you know, that'll be really gratifying for me. But at the same time, there's a part of me that's saying, but I'm not fully fulfilled just doing that. So how do I readjust, right? So now it's the two worlds being priorities to me,
Yep.
but finding that balance. Yeah, the
Yeah.
balance. And
you've
not
done a good
feeling
job of
sad.
transitioning from 1 to 2. You guys know, the viewers know she has 2 now, and I've seen her transition from 1 to 2 in such an elegant, just a
Thanks.
beautiful, phenomenal way. It's a beautiful thing, but at the same time, I'm just like, Britt, you have all of these amazing visions, and, you know, just write it down. Like, let's do it. Like, I feel like every successful business, as you know, you've helped so many become, you know, world-renowned names. You have to have a team.
Yep.
And with prioritizing, remembering that Rome wasn't built overnight.
Right.
So just having that humility, but also having that never-ending passion and drive and determination, that's like, come hell high water, I'm going to get this done.
Yeah.
This is a girl who's really walking the talk, telling you these things. She's not just saying that. She actually does it. I see it live in her life all the time. She doesn't stop. She goes and she makes time, and you cook for the family, and then you get home, but you never fall short of what you need to do in your life every day. She will multitask. She never ignores my phone call. I'm not kidding. There's a really beautiful, amazing aspect of yourself that knows how to kind of do both and make time and when to say no. And I think that that's hard to really get to. And I think that one day at a time, what comes to my mind is like, sometimes we want to do it all. We want to do it all at once.
We're moms.
And then if it's like, if I can't do it all the right way and make it look like this, then I can't do it at all. And I think that this is really opening up that avenue of saying, yes, you can.
Yeah.
You can
Thank
do
you,
it.
Dr. G.
Just do it, even if it's the 10 minutes a day.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's huge.
Yeah. So let's dig into that, right? You have the mindset of top level executive, and I would just tweak one thing. So you said balance. I actually see integration as why you're successful, right? And why you can do so many things, because balance means you have to stop this to do that to kind of calibrate where things are. But you don't do that. What I'm hearing you say is there's integration. And so as an example, coaching a couple clients, one of them wanted to have balance. And so they would do, okay, I'm going to focus 30 minutes here and then spend 30 minutes there and do that. But it was just categories of work. Another person, what they did is experiment with integration. And so instead of, for example, they wanted to be more active, like physically active, because they were a bit overweight. They didn't like where they were. And instead of doing brackets, meaning go to the gym 30 minutes here and then do that, they started integrating. So they would go for a walk and then talk, or they would integrate their activity around a team building session, or find ways to do multiple things at the same time that can be done.
I'm getting this now. I'm like, okay, so in the morning, I'm going to go on my prayer walk and I'm going to bring my daughter with me and I'm going to stroll, prayer walk at the same time and get my fitness. I'm like, how am I going to, are any of your other mind, like who else's minds are starting to roll through how they're going to do this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is great because it sparks a lot of thought of how to think differently, you know, how to really start to process in a different way, not balance, but integration. You hear that, moms? Not
That's a big
balance,
deal, guys.
but
Take notes.
integration.
That's good.
This is huge. Thank you for that gem.
Yeah, and it's the last piece there is the round table. So when we talk about the people around us, is we don't have to do it all, right? Like I don't have to.
We don't have to do it all.
You don't. You like, people can do it better than you can. They're probably smarter, right? I know there's a ton of people that could do better things than I can. And instead of me trying to do everything, I've learned to let go.
Delegation.
Pass it. Yeah.
Delegation.
Pass it. Give it to them.
She's
Delegate
the queen of
and priority.
delegation. I am the kid. Like,
Dude, my husband and I bought a franchise when he retired from the NFL, and I was miserable because I'm a control freak. And me, as a control freak, I tried to do everything.
Yeah.
But like 2 months in, I was like, I'm exhausted, I'm drained, I can't. So I learned to delegate.
yes. And that takes humility because I was in a space where it's like, it's better if I do it, then I don't have to worry about someone messing up and then I got to fix it.
Right.
And then it's, it gets stressful because it's like you trust somebody else and they mess it up. And then you feel like you're going backwards now.
Yeah, that's okay. It's trust, right? So as a last piece of kind of conversation here is, as we think about the round table, what I like to say is there is no head of the table. There is no, this person has all the answers, they could do everything. It's everyone here has an equal contribution of mind, body, and spirit. And how can we collaborate to make this work, right?
Wow.
Whether it's a franchise of 1,000 or a tiny organization of a mom, a dad, or whatever structure it is to make it work. But it's the different ideas that create that beauty of, if I like to say this, right, and promise this last thing, which is if you want to be different, you have to think differently. Otherwise, you just get the same thing over and over and over.
I'm already applying this to so many things in life. Thank you so much. Dr. G, where can we find your publications, your books, your inspiration, and all the things that we can find about you?
And all these round table nuggets.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can find it on Amazon. You could also find me on social media, which is Dr. Abraham Gutsioglou, or pretty soon Dr. G. Just tag that. You'll find it there.
Amazing.
Nice.
So you can find his book on Amazon, The Round Table. We will have more for you after this. We will put all of that information out for all of you moms, dads, and people out there that want to find out more on Dr. G. thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
hope that this has been a fruitful discussion for all of you out there in the mama gang, in the hood, the motherhood, that you'll be able to apply this to your life. We thank you so much. And until next time, we will bring you back more tips, tricks, insight for the hood, the motherhood. Thank
Peace
you,
and
and we'll see you
love.
next time.